Hey, my name is Darius Mora, and I beat the often path by detecting depression from voice.
Welcome back to the Beat the Often Path podcast. I'm your host, Ross Palmer. Joining us today is Darius Mora, the CEO and co-founder of Vitality Therapeutics, a startup using artificial intelligence to solve mental health problems. You might not know this, but machine learning can be used to detect patterns in our speech, like our tonality, for example, that can help us diagnose mental health issues like depression and burnout faster. In a world where therapists are scarce and expensive, applying AI to the massive mental health problems facing our society today is an incredibly exciting frontier. We discuss the implications of emerging tech on some of our most pressing problems, and I know you'll be deeply inspired by Darius Mora. So here we go. Well, hey, Darius, I'm really excited to have you here today. It's really an honor that you're joining me. I love what I do. I love this show. I love spending time with people like you.
That's it, diagnosed. That's all we need to hear. 10 seconds of audio.
I'm sorry, what? What are you talking about?
Exactly.
So tell us about the problem. What is the problem that you solve? How did you get into it?
So, burnout, which is what we're focusing on right now, is just a fancy overachiever word for depression or work-induced depression. If our moms know how we feel after 5 seconds of phone conversation because of the way we sound. It doesn't matter what you say, but how you say it. If you go to a therapist, they'll listen to what you say, but they'll diagnose you mostly or partially on how you say things. And so voice is an incredibly rich source of data, if you will, and we can get all kinds of insights out of there. And we know that we can diagnose depression, detect burnout, and all kinds of interesting stuff. The problem is that right now, depression is diagnosed by a self-assessment. In the US, there's a questionnaire called PHQ-9 and GAD-7, a couple of questions about how you feel. So we have no objective way of figuring out. There's no real biomarkers or objective data. And so we believe we can be the first ones to create an objective measure of depression.
That's super cool. And it's very fascinating to me because we're essentially applying AI or machine learning to this new world. That's what you're doing. And we've seen that we're entering this stage with ChatGPT, DALL-E, where AI is starting to become a more functional part of our life. We're on the precipice of that, where people are saying, hey, you can make money online by having ChatGPT code a website for you, and then you can just copy that code, and then you can use it to drive traffic and make $1,000 a day. So we're starting to see people who are practically attempting to use AI, and also in terms of artwork, big questions about copyright and ownership and all of that, and how do we generate all this stuff. But what I find most fascinating about AI, or machine learning, if you will, and it's what you touched on at the very start, is that when we set machine learning to solve problems that we have, it solves problems in ways that we might not have seen. And that can have potential consequences, both good and bad. Like if we say, hey, look at a bunch of x-rays, turns out AI can detect from a very small part of an x-ray whether a human is male or female. And doctors don't know how it does it. It's just analyzing data, and no doctor understands how it understands that it's a male or a female based on this tiny thing, but it understands. And we have these traditional things of human-based diagnosis for conditions. A doctor looks at you, they check for markers or questionnaires or self-reporting. But the idea that AI or machine learning could detect something like depression or burnout in you by using something other than what you might think, like the tonality of your voice, totally independent of the actual content of your words, is just something that's very fascinating to me. And I think it's just the start of AI solving many of our problems in ways that we don't understand. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think the timing is just perfect. I've been toying around with this idea for years. Since, for the last 3 years at least, I've been actively thinking about it and kind of looking into it. And I think the timing is just right. Like you said, everybody's talking about ChatGPT and DALL-E, and all those are amazing. And machine learning that can complete code or write code for you. And it's going to solve problems that we don't even know were possible. And this is definitely one of them. Like you said, machine learning is computer vision and voice analysis has been used to diagnose physical illnesses before. It's super cool. And so we think we can do that for mental health.
Oh, I saw from your bio that I think it was your dad who struggled with bipolar disorder, if I'm not mistaken. So how did you end up, you said you've been thinking about this for years. How did you end up coming up with this idea and then realizing it's something that you actually could do or wanted to do?
Yeah, so it was actually in conversations with my dad, who's been diagnosed with bipolar, and he's managing it really well right now. So he's doing well. But when something like that, it hits personal to home, you become more curious about how the whole world works. And he's always been curious about AI and machine learning. And back in 2019, he was asking me kind of how it works, and I was figuring out the basics. And we talked about the example of doctors using computer vision to get a second opinion on X-rays. The AI is not making decisions, but it's just a second opinion maybe points out something that a doctor would normally miss, or radiologist in this case. And so I was kind of explaining that, and my dad is a very smart guy, and he was kind of thinking, you can break down music into a music sheet. You can have data, you can kind of replicate, go back and forth. And so then he's thinking, there must be a way to break down voice into some kind of a voice sheet or some kind of data and spot patterns just like you would with anything else. And I thought, it's interesting. I went online, looked at the research, and found a paper published. There was one in 2017 and one in 2019 from a researcher named Mashura Tasneem. And she wrote a paper about diagnosing depression from voice alone. It was at the University of Alberta, I believe, at the time. And so I read the paper, and it looked like it's fascinating. It wasn't perfect, but it definitely had potential. And so I reached out to Mashura, just had a quick conversation, just out of curiosity to see where the tech is. And I realized that either it's ready to be pushed to the masses, or it needs a little bit of work, a bit more data, and to kind of fine tune the models, and then start testing it out with real patients. And events happened in my life that allowed me to start thinking about what do I want to build next. And when the time was right, Vitality seemed like the perfect thing. In a beautiful full circle story, Mashura Tasneem, the original researcher, is now our head of AI, and she's building out the machine learning models. And we have an incredible team on board of very smart engineers and clinicians and all kinds of cool people that are building it out. So that's how we got here. And I'm still, consulting with my dad, if you will, and exploring what's the next thing we can do with this.
So how far have you gotten the technology at this point? How accurate is it? How reliable is it? Where are you at in the process?
Yeah, so we're very excited that we're right now, the state of the art is about 80% accuracy, and we're there. We're going to be closer to 100% very soon. We are supporting an expedition to the South Pole that's happening on the 1st of January. The Aura Ring, which you might know, they're providing the physical biomarkers for the expedition, and we're providing the mental biomarkers for the expedition. So people on the ice, the actual people participating there, will be using our technology every day. We'll be collecting the data and kind of measuring their health and giving them what we call a vitality score, which is just like the Aura Ring gives you a sleep score and readiness score. We'll give you a kind of an overall mental health score, and then a breakdown of your kind of stress levels, your happiness, your kind of joyfulness, and all these things. So we're super proud to be launching in this way. And we'll be collaborating with Berkeley University and University College London to then do deeper research in technology and then roll out a commercial version in Q1 next year.
So that's awesome. Sounds incredible. It's such a large study. Now, what do you need to have the people do to get those mental biomarkers? Do they need to turn on a camera and say something every day like Avatar 1? Journal the whole experience?
So right now it's an audio journal. So it's a simple app. You record 3 minutes of audio. We call it a stream of consciousness. So you just talk about your day, the way you would write into your diary. Kind of talk about how you're feeling, what's going on. Right now it's 3 minutes. For the actual diagnosis, it'll be much, much shorter. It'll be a couple of seconds of the audio that we actually need. But in this phase, it's 3 minutes. And For this product, we're also matching it with an actual depression diagnosis. So we have the data and the label, which is what you need to build machine learning models, and then improve the model. If you are depressed, first of all, you will not, or on average, most people will not seek a therapist until it's very, very late. We don't catch, like any disease, physical disease. The earlier you catch it, the higher chance you have of getting through it. The same with mental health. But we don't really catch anything mental health-wise until it's very late. People don't reach out to therapists until their life is affected in a very negative way. And by then it's already too late, right? So that's the first problem, that we don't even begin the process. Now, let's say you realize, okay, I'm depressed, I need help. If you're in the US, there's 106,000 licensed therapists. Not enough for everyone right now. If you're lucky and you have the money, you might be getting an appointment within a couple of weeks. Sometimes it could take a few months, depending on your situation. If you're depressed, you need help today, not 3 months from now. And then the problem is, a good therapist will charge you, $200 an hour?
I was going to say.
That insurance will not cover.
Right.
And when you're depressed, you need help every day, not once in 2 weeks. If you can afford $400 a month extra, which most people in the world, including the developed world, cannot do. And so what we think is that we can help with kind of pointing out the red flags early on, so you can find help professionally and get a therapist early on. And then maybe you can do 1 or 2 sessions a month, but you can use our tech every day between the sessions, and the therapist will be able to watch your progress objectively, not subjectively. So we absolutely don't want to replace therapists or psychologists or anyone, but I mean, this is a gigantic crisis that we don't really have a solution for.
So do you think that the most exciting part of AI tackling some of these problems is the democratization of access to some of these tools, or the ability to serve a greater percentage of the population who aren't as privileged?
Absolutely. I think that's going to be the biggest contribution that we can make. Obviously, there's going to be really big business opportunities if you want to do that as well. And we're doing some, B2B things that I think are going to be great for business. But there's going to be also a gigantic opportunity to serve a portion of the population that would not have been served otherwise, and that does not have a choice. This is why I'm super excited about the diagnostics, but as well as the treatment solutions that we have, because they're literally a fraction of the cost. And there will be cases, and I don't know what percentage of the population is going to be, that maybe doesn't need the full attention of the therapist. Maybe you can just catch it early on and take action early on, and kind of self-correct early on. I think there is a possibility for that as well, and it'll be fraction of a cost, just like with physical healthcare system. Prevention is cheaper than treatment.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Darius. We're near the end here, so is there anything you'd like to promote? Obviously, today is launch day. This episode will air, so the launch day will have been in the past, and I'm sure it will have been an outstanding success looking back on it when this episode actually airs, but I'd like you to close this episode out. So anything you want to promote or say, parting words, it's yours.
Yeah, I'm incredibly proud of our team and the people who are there, and so I'd love for them to get the recognition and for everyone to be on the podcast, but we can't, so I'm just doing it myself. But if you're curious about Vitality, our company, you can check out Vitality Therapeutics on Instagram, and I think that's a good place that everybody has, and from there you can find out all the other social media platforms and everything we're doing. If you want to get involved, if this resonates, feel free to reach out through Instagram as well, or you can find Vitality Therapeutics on LinkedIn and reach out in whatever way. It all goes to my inbox, so I'll respond. But if you want to just use the tech or help us get to our mission quicker, I'd be very honored if people reached out.
That's good. And, full disclosure for our viewers and listeners, if you reach out, the response that you get will not be from a human. It will be from ChatGPT. Because he is a busy man, folks. He's got more important stuff to do. But you'll think it's from him, and that's all that matters. It'll be good.
You will not know the difference.
Yeah, you won't know the difference, so you'll be happy with it. No, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And with that, the official episode is over.